The Joker is arguably the most recognizable villain in comic book history. He's a loose cannon in the truest sense of the word. He's both unpredictable and incredibly intelligent. He lives only to act as the perfect foil for Batman. Joker sees himself as a necessary force for the progression of the Batman as a hero. He has no powers, and almost never presents himself as a physical threat to his enemies. But instead, he preys on their psychological weaknesses and the weaknesses of those they hold dear. Although, this is information that, thanks to The Dark Knight, most people are aware of. Yet, most don't know much about the history of this iconic villain. That's for good reason. Joker's past is usually left purposefully ambiguous, and there are tons of versions of him throughout the history of pop culture. Sometimes, and other times, he can be downright terrifying, as he was in The Killing Joke and The Dark Knight Returns. And, that being said, comic books are what we're going to focus on today. So, with that little bit of hits the most. And most important of all, which versions of the character stick with us the long Dark Knight Returns. Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns is undoubtedly one of the most Joker. In this version of the Joker, we first see his character in a comatose state of sorts, after he snaps the Joker out of his dormant state. Joker eventually escapes his therapist's control by, well, what else? Slaughtering them all on live television just to get the attention of Batman. And of course, it works. Batman and Joker have one last showdown at a public carnival. Joker's choice, of course, not Batman's. And it's revealed that the Joker planned this entire confrontation as a way to die and best Batman once and for all. During this process, Joker takes out a whole lot of innocent bystanders, and even gravely injures Batman himself just before Batman breaks his neck, paralyzing him, but not killing him. The Joker then laughs at Batman for not following through with his murder, laughing while doing it. He did this because he knew eventually police would come across his body and blame Batman for his death, ultimately turning the public against the Dark Knight once and for all. So, yeah, this version of the Joker is very dark and very creepy. His only drive in life is to act as a counter to all the good Batman has done for Gotham. It's an obsession, it defines him, and it defines Batman as well. And Joker knows this, and is willing to die serving that purpose. It's a pretty haunting version of the character. Number 2, The Killing Joke. Alright, sorry for all this gloom and doom in this video, but this classic story, if you love it or absolutely hate it, this version of the Joker stands out among the pack for two big reasons. 1. With this version of the Joker, we get a fairly clear origin story for the character. Mind you, this origin is framed as being told by the Joker himself, so it could all be a tale that he weaved together in that twisted brain of his. And we'll get to more details about that origin in just a second. Sit tight. 2. This version of the character might be even more twisted and haunting than the version from The Dark Knight Returns, because he makes his attacks on Batman even more personal, by going after the ones he loves in pretty horrible ways. The Killing Joke is a classic one-shot comic book written by legend Alan Moore. Like we mentioned earlier, this comic gives us what is depicted as a definitive origin for the character as a married, failed comedian with a child on the way, who decides to make some extra cash by helping out a group of criminals rob a playing card company next to a chemical plant that he used to work at, which naturally puts him in Batman's sights. Batman and Joker, then dressed as the original Red Hood, have a confrontation that ultimately leads to the Joker falling in a vat of toxic chemicals that, along with the death of his wife and unborn child, drive him insane and permanently disfigure him with the classic chalk white skin, red lips, and green hair. So, that covers the origin of the Joker in this story, so let's get to the really messed up stuff. The Killing Joke actually covers two different time periods at once: Joker's origin story and his current encounters with the Batman and those around him. For this story, that includes Jim and Barbara taking nude pictures of her while she's in pain. He then kidnaps Jim Gordon and forces him to take LSD, or at least it's implied he takes LSD, as he shows him the pictures that he took of his nude, injured daughter in pain, while he's surrounded by circus freaks, all to prove that anyone can go insane after having just one bad day. The thing is, that plan does not work, and Jim remains firmly in control of his mental faculties. By this time, Batman shows up to put Jim's mental torture to an end. Joker and Batman have a chase through a section of Gotham until Batman finally captures Joker, telling him that his tormenting Jim Gordon did not work, and that he was truly alone in his madness. Batman then attempts to put an end to their years-long war with one another by offering him help with his mental state. You see, Batman knew that one day their feud would ultimately end with one of them killing each other. Joker declines Batman's help and tells Batman a joke about two inmates assail him in a nearby building. But the other inmate is afraid he'll fall, The first inmate then offers to shine a flashlight across the gap so that the other can walk across it. But the second inmate replies, "What do you think, I'm crazy? You turned it off when I was halfway across." Batman then bursts out in laughter as the camera pans down and police arrive on the scene. The last panels that we see of the book is that the process. Anyways, as you could probably gather, the Killing Joke's ending implies that Batman is actually the one who ends up going insane and finally decides to kill the Joker as a result. It's depressing, it's profound, it's disturbing all in one. Not to mention, it's a pretty perfect ending for the two characters, depending on your point of view, of course. Number 3, the New 52 Joker. With the relaunch of the entire DC Comics line back in 2011, there was of course a new Joker to go along with it. And was he a happier, more fun Joker, less concerned with the torment of Batman? No, that would be weird. He actually doubled down by cutting off his own face, then wearing it while hunting down the entire Bat family. Man, just give Bruce a break every now and then, would ya? The story arc we're referring to here is Death of the Family, a clever play on the classic A Death in the Family storyline where Joker kills Jason Todd, the second Robin. Death of the Family was just one story arc of many in the stellar Batman run written by Scott Snyder and penciled by Greg Capullo. In this particular story arc, the Joker returns to Gotham after a long stint of being away, and systematically kidnaps all of those Batman has come to rely on. We're talking all the different versions of Robin, Batgirl, the whole crew. During the apex of the story arc, after the entire Bat family is captured, Joker covers each member of the Bat family in gasoline and stages a mock family dinner where he's brainwashed Alfred into serving each member of the Bat family trays of what they think are their own severed faces, similar to what Joker recently did to himself. When Batman arrives on the scene, Joker threatens to ignite the family, but Batman's able to thwart Joker's plan and saves everyone present at this mock dinner. He then unmasks all of them and then discovers that their faces are actually intact. This was all just one big game to Joker. Batman then tracks down Joker in the cave system where all of this is happening, and Joker falls down a large cavern, ending this story for the time being. Seeing Joker once again get way too personal with Batman and his allies is incredibly effective at letting the audience know why he's such a threat to the Caped Crusader, and of course why he will forever haunt our dreams. Oh, and hey, before we wrap this up, we've got to mention that this New 52 version of the Joker is a direct source of inspiration for Gotham, the show currently airing on Fox, which features Jerome, a kind of, sort of, maybe Joker that also cuts his own face off and wears it. Gross. So, are you creeped out enough yet? If you have any version of Joker in the comics that creeps you out even more than the ones we've mentioned on our list, be sure to let us know. And as always, be sure to check back at Fandom for more on Batman, Joker, and everything DC Comics.